What is up, everyone? Welcome back to my channel. This will be my April TBR and my March wrap-up. And the first part of this video will be fantasy. The second part will be nonfiction books, and then I'll talk about maybe some future plans and other things for my channel. And there will be timestamps if you do or don't care about any of this. You can skip around. So let's get into it. Fantasy. I obviously finished The Royal Assassin at the end of February and beginning of March, and we did the live show on Anita's channel, so check that out. But now I am reading Assassin's Quest, Book 3 in Realm of the Elderlands. I'm just over halfway through it. The live show for this will be on my channel next Sunday, and it should be at noon Eastern Time, or 1 Eastern Time, I'm not sure yet. Definitely keep your eye out for that if you want to join. I'm liking this one probably more than Royal Assassin. I feel like more is happening in this book, whereas I feel like a lot of things did happen very slowly in Royal Assassin. I know this is like the least popular opinion ever, probably, because everyone loves Royal Assassin. But yeah, Fitz feels more proactive in this book, and that's all I'll really say because it's book 3 of a series. But definitely check out the live show or join my Discord if you want to talk more about these. Also, for the read-along, April will be a month that we take a break from the read-along, and then in May, we will start with the Live Ship Traders trilogy, so I definitely look forward to reading that. Up next, book 3 in the Greenbone saga, Jade Legacy by Fonda Lee, and I'm happy that I finished this trilogy because I hadn't finished a series in a good amount of time. So yeah, that was great. Also, this book had a lot of hype surrounding it, and I think for the most part for me, it lived up to the hype, so that's also a good thing. This felt a little bit more disjointed to me than the first book, Jade City, and that's partly because of the time jumps in here. At times, Jade Legacy felt like a collection of short stories that happen in chronological order because a lot of the plots and subplots were not super connected to each other, but I think a lot of the short stories were well done, and I like the plots and just the political and social commentary overall pretty good. I had some issues on that front, which I talked about in my video reviewing the series. And yeah, I feel like if you like fantasy, you'll like this book. I know that's pretty vague, but it seems to have pretty wide appeal. And there are definitely people who didn't like Jade City who stopped reading after Jade City. So maybe that's why the hype for Jade Legacy is so high. But I feel like if you read Jade City and you did not like Jade City, there's not too much hope for you to like the later books in the series, partly because we follow around a lot of the same characters. The writing style is pretty similar. Obviously, there's different plots and stuff, but it's not like completely different later on. The series feels the same throughout the series, which is overall a good thing. And I definitely loved seeing how, and yeah, no series has really immersed me in kind of like the vibe of the world as much as Jade Legacy, which definitely is a good thing because there's obviously kind of barbaric practices in the series, like dueling. Obviously, that's a barbaric way to settle disagreements, getting into a duel. But again, the general vibes, it's like, oh yeah, they're dueling. This is like totally normal. And there's like expressions for all these things, like duels are challenging someone to a clean blade, and then there's like social norms to the duel. Like one person will ask which weapon you want to fight with, the Talon knife or the moon blade. And yeah, just like little things like that are good immersion tools for me. And just, you know, there are some books and series that I don't remember too well a year or two after I read them, but I feel like the Greenbone saga is a series that I will remember very well for the most part. Up next, boom, another book 3. Guys, I wasn't even planning on making March the third month of this year the month of book 3s. It's just kind of happened this way, but I was not disappointed because Morning Star by Pierce Brown, very good. I enjoyed it a lot. And it's also interesting to contrast that with Robin Hobb because Hobb's writing style is slow and steady and Pierce Brown's writing is fast and hectic. And if I'm being honest, I would have preferred it to be a little bit slower. I feel like so many things happen, and it was like, oh no, people are dying again, but didn't someone just die like a few chapters ago? How many deaths can there be? But yeah, the Red Rising trilogy was just so much fun, and I did like the struggle against the golds in this incredibly oppressive society. I would have actually preferred getting more into the nitty-gritty of the struggle in terms of getting allies and stuff. And there's definitely some of that, but this was more about guerrilla warfare and sabotage and more like military stuff. And I'm not the biggest fan of open military combat all the time. Also, I think the first book was probably my favorite just because I'm just a sucker for the Hunger Games plotline trope sort of thing. But yeah, overall, another great trilogy that I would recommend, especially if you like fast-paced sci-fi stories. All right, now what will I be reading? Foundryside by Robert Jackson Bennett. I am going to start this in April, and then if I like this, I'm going to continue on with the series and be prepared for book 3 to come out in June. And yeah, as I mentioned in my last video about the Divine Cities trilogy, Robert Jackson Bennett is an author that I really want to read more from, and I know the magic is cool and interesting, or it sounds like you can program objects to do the things that you want them to do. So that's cool. And also the theme, I guess, kind of gives me Red Rising vibes in that it's lower class people rising up against these extremely oppressive, wealthy people who control society, basically, politically, economically, and basically in every way. So yeah, it should be cool. I hear the characters in here are more likable than the characters in the Divine Cities trilogy, so I'm excited for that. And yeah, Brandon Sanderson on the back says, quote, prepare for ancient mysteries, innovative magic, and heart-pounding heists. So there's not much of a better endorsement than that, especially for me as Sanderson's #1 shill. Also, I'll be buddy reading this in my Discord. It'll be the official buddy read if you want to join me. And if you've already read this, well, that's fine, because we'll talk about the sequels in the next few months as well, and you can follow along when I'm going through it for the first time. So it should be fun. Up next, this big chunky boy is on my TBR again. I will get to it this month for sure. Book 2, The Wall of Storms by Ken Liu. I loved The Grace of Kings, and I just need to continue on with all the series that I'm in the middle of, because if I like the first book in a series, I should definitely keep going with it. And yeah, this is kind of like Game of Thrones, but based on Chinese history instead of European history. And instead of dragons, there is kind of steampunk-esque sort of technologies. I will get to this. I'm very excited for it. Ken Liu is just a great writer from the first book. And also, yeah, this is another book where book 4 is coming out in June, and I want to be ready for that. So yes, join me and be ready for all of the sequels and stuff. And now we're into the nonfiction section. The Color of Law I finished, so we don't really have to talk about it because I think I said basically everything I wanted to say in my wrap up for last month, because this was read mostly in February. Next, I almost finished this. I talked about this, Noam Chomsky's The Consequences of Capitalism, Manufacturing Discontent and Resistance. And yeah, I'm almost done with this one. This is a series of lectures, and it talks about how capitalism and the global economy is framing things in a way and framing our society in a way that might not be the best way for us to see the world as a society. And this goes through a lot of things. So like Margaret Thatcher, for example, the former Prime Minister of Great Britain, would obviously take issue with the premise of this book, because she famously said societies don't exist, there's only the individual and the family, which obviously I do not agree with. I think society does exist. I know, bold statement by me. But yes, also, you know, more liberal centrists who also agree with me that society does exist have issues with their worldview, which often prioritize things like GDP and economic success of the rich and powerful, those things are prioritized over things like our environment and the average happiness of people in a society. So yeah, in that way, this book asks and answers a lot of interesting questions. And yeah, I've got to finish this for sure because it's great. I think it's a great intro to Chomsky, and it does feel like I'm listening to a college lecture again, which, I mean, this is college lectures, so it's probably a good thing that it feels that way to me. Also, I'm listening to the audiobook for this. So yeah, I highly recommend the audiobook if you want that sort of like lecture college vibe. Also, I really must bring up that I'm not the biggest fan of Chomsky's deferral to Mersheimer's analysis of the Ukraine-Russia conflict. Mersheimer has kind of a history of viewing nations as rational actors, and sometimes that's fine, but he has been wrong a lot over the years, and I mean, everyone's going to be wrong sometimes, but my bigger issue with Mersheimer's analysis is kind of like the amorality. Like, you can view any tyrant or dictator as someone doing things that they see as rational. That doesn't mean they're right. But Chomsky doesn't talk about Russia too much in this book. I just have to bring that up because the Russia invasion of Ukraine is obviously horrible, imperialist, and obviously Chomsky agrees with that, but I think his analysis of that whole invasion of Ukraine is not the best. But you guys should still read this book. And also, it's very fun reading this book with Angie. So yeah, you guys should subscribe to her channel as well. And I believe we're talking about this at some point in time. I'm not sure when. But yeah, she's not done with this book either. So yeah. Up next, boom, the nonfiction book I will be reading in April. Open Veins of Latin America by Eduardo Galleno. And yeah, this book was gifted to me by the wonderful Potato Brarian, who is the legendary mod in my Discord, along with Charmaine, of course. Also, Alicia Guzman had a video at the start of the year which aimed to highlight different South and Latin American countries, and she is going to read one book from those various countries per month. And April, so this month, is Uruguay, and this author's from Uruguay, so it gives me an excuse to read this book, which I wanted to read anyway. But yes, this book is 5 centuries of the pillage of a continent. So basically how Europe and the global north has taken resources from various South American countries. And yeah, this book highlights how they were exploited, why they were exploited, stuff like that, and just the wealth that we basically stole from these countries. And yeah, it should be interesting to read. I can't talk about it too much because I don't know too much about a lot of the things that will get talked about in here. I kind of have some understanding of some countries in recent history, but this goes back a lot farther, I think. Like, I don't know very much about South America in the 1800s really at all. Also, this book seems pretty concise, so I think ideally this will be a good intro for me on this topic. And like, I kind of know that gold, silver, rubber, other natural resources, steel, was stolen from Central and South America, but that's most of where my knowledge ends. So definitely I want to build that knowledge base so I can maybe talk about this stuff more and hopefully contextualize modern Central and South American politics, which I sometimes talk about and sometimes look into. And yeah, as far as my announcement goes, I don't really know what I am doing with my channel. I've definitely felt a little bit more burnt out on BookTube and reading and stuff, but I'm not like super burnt out. I think I just need something to freshen things up, and my plan is to do live shows with reading sprints and maybe various other things. And I'll have segments where I talk about different things. Maybe I'll do like a book haul live. And then after I can edit it and post it to my channel. I think that would be interesting, especially because I'll have live chat so I can talk to you guys. And yeah, I've got a few ideas. For example, I know everyone on BookTube loves the rant reviews, or at least the rant reviews get the views. But I'm generally good at picking out books that I want to read, and when I read something bad, I kind of want to DNF it, but I can't do a rant review if I DNF it, and sometimes I just don't feel super inclined to do a rant review on everything I don't like, but I do like watching rant reviews, and maybe it would be funny to get my commentary on a rant review for a book that I like. And I had this idea while watching Klaus's video on The Ember Blade, and he did not like that book. I thought he was going to like that book, so it was kind of a swing and a miss as far as recommendations go for me. If I watch that video live, it will be rantception, because he will be ranting and I will be ranting about his ranting. So it might be funny. It might be a total disaster. Obviously, I like Klaus, and like, no one go bother Klaus about not liking The Ember Blade. But yeah, I mean, I'll be able to do stuff like that, and I think it will be fun and maybe funny, and also I do like interacting with the chat. So overall, a win-win-win, and hopefully that freshens up my BookTube attitude. But yeah, see you guys next time.